My building wasn't old. That's the part that bothers me the most. It wasn't some abandoned hospital or forgotten school or crumbling factory. It was a modern corporate office. Glass doors, beige walls, LED lights, the whole sterile package. And yet, something in that place felt wrong at night. Too quiet. Too hollow. Like a building pretending to be empty. But nothing ever happened, not until the night Halim vanished. Halim, the steady presence. Everyone loved Halim. He was the night janitor, in his early 60s, with a soft walk and a habit of humming old Algerian folk melodies under his breath. He wasn't chatty, but he made eye contact, smiled politely, and never missed a beat in his routine. He worked like clockwork. Offices first, hallways next, meeting rooms, third floor, warehouse, basement, then the main lobby last, right before midnight. If he wasn't humming, something was wrong. And that night, something was definitely wrong. I remember the time exactly because I had just finished a late call with a client. When I stepped out to stretch my legs, I saw Halim's cleaning cart parked near the elevator on the third floor. Parked too neatly. His bucket was half full. His mop leaned against the cart like he meant to grab it any second. The radio on top played faint static. He always kept it on a local station, low volume, like he needed noise to keep him company. But there was one thing out of place. His keys. He left them hanging from a hook on the cart. In 6 years, Halim never left his keys behind. He had this superstition. A building at night shouldn't have open doors. He said it jokingly, but the way he said it always made me think he meant something else. I called his name down the hall. No answer. I walked over to the elevator, and that's when I noticed the door wasn't properly closed. One panel was stuck, leaving a gap wide enough for me to slip my fingers inside. Something was jamming it. When I forced it open slightly, I realized the elevator wasn't at our floor. It was stalled between floors, maybe 2 feet lower. Inside the car, resting in the far left corner, was Halim's flashlight. Still on, still pointing upward, toward the ceiling panel. The beam flickered slightly, like it was dying, or like something had passed in front of it earlier. Why was he looking up? What was he pointing at? I called his name again, louder this time. Still nothing. I went straight to the security office. The night guard was half asleep at the monitors, but when I told him Halim was missing, he suddenly straightened up and rewound the feeds. We watched every angle. Janitor's closet, third floor hallway, elevators, stairwells, lobby. Everything looked normal. Halim followed his usual routine. Mop, bucket, trash bag, hum, hum, hum. Then at 8:59 p.m., he stopped in the middle of the third floor hallway. He tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to something. He turned off the radio. The hallway suddenly looked too quiet. He whispered something. The mics aren't good enough to pick up audio, but he definitely said something like, "Not tonight." Then he looked toward the elevator and walked out of frame. 30 seconds later, camera 3A glitched. Static. Black screen. Full distortion. 6 seconds exactly. When the feed came back, the hallway was empty. And Halim didn't reappear on any other camera. Not stairwell cam, not lobby cam, not warehouse cam. He vanished, somewhere between that elevator and the dead 6-second camera gap. Maintenance forced the elevator to the nearest landing. They opened the hatch on top. They checked the entire shaft. No body, no clothes, no blood, no sign he slipped or fell, nothing. But on the top edge of the elevator shaft, right above where his flashlight was aiming, were faint smudges. Long, thin streaks. Like someone dragged their fingers across dusty metal while being pulled upward. Maintenance said it was probably nothing, just dirt. But I've never seen dirt streaks 5 feet long. When security opened Halim's janitor's closet, they found it locked from the inside. Inside was his notebook. He recorded every task with obsessive detail. When he cleaned, what he refilled, what supplies he needed. The last entry, written 10 minutes before he vanished, was short. Floor 3. Humming again. Not from me. Halim hummed constantly, but he'd never written about someone or something else humming. The closet had no window, only one door, locked. There was no way he wrote that after leaving. So why was it left open on the table as if he wanted someone to find it? Security asked me to walk the 3rd floor with them. I didn't want to, but I couldn't leave. Something in me needed to know what happened. When we reached the end of the hallway, the dark part past the meeting rooms, we heard it. A low humming. Not a human humming, not like Halim's soft melodies. This was deep, vibrating, like it came from the walls themselves. I felt it in my chest, in my teeth. Samit whispered, "Do you hear that?" I nodded. The humming grew louder, then softer, then closer. Too close. We backed away slowly. The hallway felt narrower. The lights dimmed just slightly, but enough to make everything look stretched and wrong. Then at the far end of the corridor, a shadow moved. Not a person, not an animal, just movement, like something shifting behind the walls. I don't remember running, but suddenly we're in the stairwell, both breathing like we sprinted miles. The official explanation. The next morning, the company issued a statement. Janitor left the premises unexpectedly. Investigation closed. But Halim's keys were still on his cart, his flashlight was still in the elevator, his notebook was still open in his closet, his radio was still playing static. And nobody, not one camera, recorded him leaving. People whispered about it for weeks, then months, then everyone stopped talking about it altogether, like the building swallowed the story the same way it swallowed him. 3 months after his disappearance, I had a late shift again. I was alone on the 3rd floor finishing a presentation. Around 11:45 p.m., I heard it. Humming. Soft first, then clearer, then unmistakable. Halim's melody. The exact tune he used to hum as he mopped. I stood up. The hallway lights flickered. Something turned the corner. Not a person, not a shape, just presence. Like the space bent around something invisible. My office door began to close on its own. Before it shut completely, I heard a whisper. Not tonight. The same words he said before he vanished. The door clicked shut. The humming continued for a few seconds more, then silence. I don't know if Halim died in that elevator. I don't know if he saw something above him. I don't know if the building took him or if something inside it did. All I know is this. Every night shift since, I avoid the third floor. And when the elevator doors glitch open for no reason, I never look inside. I used to work the closing shift at a mid-sized logistics company. Nothing glamorous, just a 24/7 operation with rotating shift workers. Back then, the building felt normal. Fluorescent lights, gray cubicles, buzzing vending machines, the usual. But there's one night I can't forget. The night Mateo didn't clock out. Mateo wasn't a close friend or anything, just a quiet, reliable guy from the inventory team. He always wore these old, beat-up sneakers, and you could hear them squeak every time he walked across the waxed floors. That's how most of us knew he was coming before he appeared. That night, we were both on the late shift. The warehouse side was shutting down, and only a few departments were still active: my office, security, and inventory. Around 11:15 p.m., I got up from my desk to grab something from the break room, and I passed by the time clock wall. Mateo's badge was still hanging, not swiped out. Weird, because his shift ended at 10:30. So, why was his badge still here? I went to check the warehouse. Only 2 overhead lights were still on, making everything look gray and hollow. Rows of shelving stretched into the dark like metal cliffs. I called out his name once, twice. Nothing echoed back except the hum of the old refrigerators near the docks. I rounded the corner near the packaging line and saw his cart, neatly arranged, scanner resting on top, a clipboard open to a half-finished form like he was in the middle of counting inventory. But no Mateo. I shrugged it off and headed toward the security room. The guard on duty, a guy named Brent, was watching the cameras with a bored expression. I asked him if he'd seen Mateo leave. He scrolled back through the feeds. Nothing. He checked every angle: front doors, side doors, dock exits, hallways. Mateo never passed through a single camera. It was as if he evaporated inside the building. Brent got uneasy and said something like, "He probably left through a blind spot." But his voice didn't match his words. He knew. The cameras covered 99% of the place. Nobody slips through unnoticed. We searched for almost 40 minutes. Break room, maintenance closets, storage rooms, even the bathrooms. By midnight, we were both quiet. Not because we were tired, but because the building felt wrong. The air felt thicker. The silence too heavy, like something was hiding in it. Around 12:10 a.m., we checked the time clock wall again. His badge was gone. Just gone. No swipe out registered. No sign he returned, nothing on camera. The next morning, HR called everyone in. Mateo never came home. He was reported missing. The official explanation? Unknown circumstances. But the part I never told anyone, the part I still think about, is what happened 3 nights later. I was alone in my cubicle, finishing reports, when I heard footsteps. Slow, familiar. Squeak, tap, squeak, tap. Mateo's sneakers. They walked right past my cubicle. I swear I felt the air shift as they passed. But when I looked, nobody was there. I was supervising the onboarding of temporary workers for our holiday rush. Most of them were young college kids just trying to make some pocket money. But one guy, Elias, he was different. Older, quiet, nervous, like someone who wasn't used to being around people anymore. He always kept to himself, never joked, never chatted, and he never removed his badge. He clipped it to his shirt like it was glued there. His first week went smoothly. Slow, but smooth. Then came the night shift. We had a huge order that needed to be processed before morning, so I brought a team of temps to help. Elias was assigned to aisle 17, the longest, most cramped aisle in the whole facility. The shelves were tall enough that you couldn't see the ceiling, and the narrow space made every sound echo strangely. Around 2:30 a.m., I did a walkthrough. Everyone was where they were supposed to be, except Elias. I called his name. Silence. Then I walked down aisle 17. Halfway through, I saw his scanning device on the floor. Still on, still connected. It showed his last scan was at 2:17 a.m. Next to it was his badge. Just the badge, clipped neatly onto the corner of a box as if someone placed it there intentionally. I picked it up and something felt wrong immediately. The metal clip was warm, like it had been in someone's hand just minutes earlier. I kept calling his name louder and louder until one of the permanent employees came to help. We searched all the aisles. We searched the bathroom. We searched the break room. Nothing. Finally, we called security to check the cameras. Here's what we saw. 2:15 a.m. Elias working alone, scanning boxes. 2:16 a.m. He pauses, looking to his left. 2:17 a.m. He steps out of frame behind a shelf. 2:17 a.m. and 12 seconds, the camera glitches. 2:18 a.m., the aisle is empty. He never came out the other end. He never came back into frame. He just didn't exist anymore. Security walked us through the blind spots in aisle 17, but none of them led to exits. There's nowhere to go except forward or backward, and he went neither. When the police came, they asked all the usual questions, but they couldn't explain why his badge looked like it had been placed where I found it. He never returned, never called, never collected his paycheck. 3 days after the investigation officially closed, I did a final walkthrough alone. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted closure. When I passed aisle 17, I heard something. A scanner beeping. Just one beep, the confirmation tone it makes when you scan a barcode. But the aisle was empty, pitch black, cold, and every box in that aisle had already been processed. Sometimes I think he's still there, lost somewhere between the shelves. Not dead, not alive, just stuck.